In 2003, an outdoor adventure enthusiast named Aaron Ralston was crawling through a canyon in Utah. He was all by himself, and a massive boulder fell and pinned his arm to a rock. He wasn't able to get his arm out. It was completely stuck, and he cried out for help, but there was no one around him. He was in the middle of the wilderness. He waited for 5 long days, and no one came to save him. And then he decided, I'm either going to die here or I'm going to have to do something drastic to get out of this situation. So he pulled out his little dull pocket knife and he said, the only way I'm going to get out of this is if I use this pocket knife to cut off my arm. How desperate would you have to be to cut off your arm? Well, Jesus says that it might take radical strategies like these, radical actions like this to fight the temptations of this world. Let's look at in Matthew chapter 18. He says, "Woe to the world for temptations to sin, for it is necessary that temptations come, but woe to the one by whom the temptation comes. And if your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It's better for you to enter life crippled or lame than with 2 hands or 2 feet to be thrown into the eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than with 2 eyes to be thrown into the hell of fire." Y'all, our world is full of temptations. There's so many things grabbing at us, trying to get us to walk in a way that is not pleasing to God. Whether it's an opportunity to disobey your parents, whether it's looking at something you shouldn't on your phone, whether it's to cave into peer pressure when you know it's not right, whatever it may be, there are temptations all around us to walk away from the plan of God. The Bible makes it very clear what the consequence of this is, what the consequence of sin is. The Bible says the wages of sin is death, that the sins that we commit give us nothing but death. And here it's described as an eternal fire, a hell of fire waiting for sinners. But Jesus gives this radical strategy of fighting against sin and temptation in these verses. He says, if your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. Take drastic measures to get rid of it. Not only cut it off, but he says cut it off and throw it away. And then he says the same thing about the eye. Tear it out and throw it away. Don't hesitate to do drastic things to avoid giving in to temptation. Go to the furthest extent of what you have to avoid sin. Now, is Jesus telling us to literally mutilate our bodies? No, probably not, but that shouldn't lessen the force of what he's saying here. If you're facing the temptation to sin, you need to be willing to do whatever it takes to not do that sin. Because whatever it is worth it if it means living in accordance with the things that please God. We won't defeat temptation by taking sort of half measures to stop it. If you are struggling with sin, you need to take an axe to whatever it is that is tempting you, and you need to get rid of it. You need to hack it to pieces. If it's your phone or your computer, get rid of it. If it's a person who tempts you, stay away from them. If it's a place where you are tempted, stay away from that place. Aaron Ralston in 2003, he had a choice. He could either die there alone in the canyon. He could die like our sin does to us. The penalty of our sin is death. He could die, or he could get rid of his arm and live. And with this dull little pocket knife, he slowly worked away. And after a long time, he was able to cut his arm off. He was able to climb out of there, somehow rappel down a massive rock face. And he survived. He's alive today. If he had refused to do the hard thing, he would have died. We cannot refuse to do the hard thing in the fight against sin. We need to take whatever measures necessary to fight against temptation.